Hi everybody, my name is Jo and I love to read. Today I'm going to be doing a series ranking of A Song of Ice and Fire by George R.R. Martin. It seems kind of crazy to me that I've actually caught up on this series. I always hoped that I would but never knew if I was going to. It seemed like such a massive long epic fantasy series, but to me it actually feels like now my gateway series to epic fantasies. I am so keen to read all the other epic ones now that I've read it. So I want to do Malazan, which is like very apparently tricky to read, but I'm keen to do it as well. I want to try The Wheel of Time. I want to do Raymond of Feist. I'm really just so excited for fantasy series since I've actually finished and loved A Song of Ice and Fire. I know obviously that A Song of Ice and Fire is not finished yet. I still have hope. I'm just so keen. I'm so happy. I'm so glad. I never imagined that I would actually love this series as much as I do when I caught up, and I'm finding it now actually difficult to find another series that I enjoy just as much. Full disclaimer that this is going to be absolutely riddled with spoilers. I haven't read Fire and Blood, I haven't watched any of the TV shows, and I also haven't read Dunk and Egg, so it's not going to have any of that stuff in it, but it will have spoilers for the entire A Song of Ice and Fire series. Starting off with my least favourite, A Clash of Kings. This is a well-named book as Joffrey, Stannis, Renly and Robb are all fighting for the crown. Theon attacks Winterfell and pretends to kill Bran and Rickon, but unbeknown to everyone at Winterfell they actually escape. Renly is murdered by a mysterious shadow. Tyrion becomes the Hand at King's Landing, saving the city from an attack by Stannis. Arya travels north to the Wall but is diverted by an attack and ends up at Harrenhal. Jon kills Quothram from the Night's Watch to convince the wildlings he's one of them. Daenerys travels to Quarthine with her dragons and sees visions at the House of the Undying Ones. Doing the summaries for these books actually really spun me in an interesting direction. I always remembered A Clash of Kings as being my least favourite, but I think it might have been with the second one. I was very new to epic fantasy, very new to George R.R. Martin, and I also didn't know that I actually prefer to read these books in parts. Even though A Clash of Kings technically isn't split into parts, that's more of the later books. I've never seen it split into parts. I wish I had read this one in half. I did that with A Feast of Crows as well, that I haven't seen that one split in half either. When I was reading the plot summaries for this one, I actually am thinking, I really want to reread this because this book sounds great and I don't actually have a lot of fond memories of it. I also tried to read it really quickly during a challenge. The stuff with Arya at Harrenhal, that was all good. I really enjoyed Tyrion being the Hand at King's Landing. I thought that was awesome. I don't really remember Theon attacking Winterfell at all, which was kind of interesting. I do remember Renly being murdered. I do remember Jon killing Quothram from the Night's Watch. Daenerys was meh in this one. This ranking of the book being my least favourite in my head is definitely a symptom of me being super new to a George R.R. Martin and super new to epic fantasy. So who knows, it might end up being a better one on a reread. After this, it actually gets really difficult trying to rank them, funnily enough, which I think is amazing because I've just given a spoiler away for my next one. I think it's amazing that I find it difficult to rank the harder I go up the scale because it means that I found every book amazing. It kind of makes me sad when my favourite book was the second or the first one, because you think even though like a series is still great and I finish it for a reason, I have no problem with DNFing series, but it's always good to see that later books are favourites because or more favourites, because it's kind of things get better instead of like peaking at the beginning and still being great but nothing can kind of top it. Ned becomes the Hand of King Robert. Jaime pushes Bran from a window and paralyses him. Jon Snow leaves Winterfell to serve at the Wall with the Night's Watch. Daenerys is married to Khal Drogo and is gifted 3 dragon eggs. Drogo kills her brother Viserys. Robert dies from a suspicious boar wound. Joffrey is crowned king. Ned is killed for learning that Cersei's children are actually Jaime's, not Robert's. Arya escapes, but Sansa is held hostage. Daenerys sacrifices her unborn child to heal Khal Drogo when he's wounded. It fails. So her child and Khal Drogo die. She places the dragon eggs on the funeral pyre and they hatch. Again, I would love to reread this. I think that it would be super fun to reread a Game of Thrones, especially with the innocence of this book. I feel like there is so much innocence in such a brutal world, and not to say that things are still not ruthless. Sorry about my dog. Koopy, can you go sit on a bed? Go sit on the bed. Good boy. I'll just see if I can get him to settle down. Not to say that things are not still like ruthless and brutal in a Game of Thrones. So if I'm being honest, for the whole series, to me it actually is not as brutal as I thought it was going to be based on what everybody said about the TV show. I don't know whether it was that seeing it maybe on a TV show made it seem a lot more brutal and the sex scenes a lot more intense. But for me, there's not as much sex as I thought there was going to be, and the murders are not as intense. A murder does happen in every book, but or multiples, but it just wasn't as crazy as I thought it was going to be. I would love to go back and reread a Game of Thrones, and I think it would be really cool to see everybody at the start again, to see Ned. I like Ned, but I also don't think that he is ruthless enough for this world. Unfortunately, I wasn't surprised that he died. Sad that he did die, because he's a great guy and you want him on your team and you can trust him, but he's just not as ruthless, so I kind of expected that. But I would just love to go back and read The Innocents again. I feel like the characters are a lot more supported in this book because, you know, because people haven't really been killed off yet. But everyone kind of has their units that they start off with. All the Starks have got themselves together. Jon goes to the Wall, and so even though he's obviously away from his family for the first time ever, he's got this unit, and it's a lot like Innocent, and he's just learning to fight and learning to be on the Wall. I also really like Daenerys in this book the most. This is probably peak Daenerys for me. I enjoyed reading the romance between her and Khal Drogo. I know that she was sold into marriage and she didn't like him that much to begin with, but then I was really mad that she sacrificed their unborn child to try and save him. And I guess, like, in retrospect, I sort of understand it because it is a really brutal world and Khal Drogo was her savior at this point. He was someone that was keeping her safe and she could trust him. But I also just feel like really horrible that she sacrificed her baby for that. I don't know if she knew she was going to sacrifice her baby. Obviously that has to happen for all the dragon stuff to happen, but it made me sad that she had to do that. My next favourite is A Dance of Dragons. I'm going to talk about the books in their whole selves. Even if I read them in parts, I'm still going to talk about it as a whole. Jon makes an alliance with the wildlings. Asher Greyjoy is captured by Stannis. Stannis begins a siege at Winterfell against Ramsay Bolton. Ramsay forces Theon to marry Janine Poole, who's posing as Arya Stark. Theon and Jean escape during the siege, and then Stannis is killed and the siege fails. Tyrion discovers Aegon Targaryen is alive, but he's separated from him when captured by slavers, and Tyrion is taken to the siege of Meereen. Quentyn Martell dies from burns from Daenerys' dragons. Aegon Targaryen lands in Westerosi and takes Griffin's Roost. Daenerys marries Hizdahr Zolorak. They watch pit fighting on their wedding night and the dragon Drogon flies in. Daenerys mounts him and flies away. Arya is still at the temple and eventually gets her sight back again because in the previous book she goes blind. Cersei confesses to adultery. She is allowed trial by combat but must walk naked the entire way home. Sir Kevan Lannister has been the regent while Cersei was imprisoned. He is assassinated by Varys, who is opening the way for Aegon Targaryen. Sorry if that's a bit jarring because I've literally just gone from the first book all the way up to the last one, but hopefully if you're watching this, well, not hopefully, but probably people that are watching this who have actually watched the show or finished the series, so they should be sort of, those recaps should just make it a bit easier, but you should hopefully know what I'm going on. If not, thanks for watching this. I appreciate it. Again, really hard to rank. I really enjoyed this book. I actually read it a lot quicker than normally. I didn't have much of a break between these two. I think I was just super keen to actually finish the series. Daenerys was unfortunately a bit of a snooze again. I really want to love her, but a lot of her stuff to me feels like incredibly pointless, and I understand that she's training to be a queen. I get that, and I do love logically that she's not abandoning the cities that she's in right now. Her goal is to take over Westeros again as the Targaryens, but I also respect the fact that she is gaining her power in Free Cities or wherever she is right now, and I respect the fact that she's not just abandoning them to go back to Westeros. I also really liked reading Jon in this. This is kind of, again, it's a really good book. I really enjoyed this. It was fun to read Jon's perspective now that he's the Lord Commander of the Wall. It was good that Tyrion turned a bit of a corner in this book because Tyrion without a purpose is a pain to read because he's an asshole. But in this book, he did get purpose again, and that was really interesting to read. Now for my second favourite, A Feast for Crows. Cersei rules as Queen Regent for King Tommen, who is only 8. The kingdom suffers due to her mental instability, which is made worse when Tommen weds Marjorie, though I really don't remember that happening, so maybe it did, maybe it didn't. Brienne searches for Arya and Sansa and is then murdered by Lady Stoneheart, who's actually Catelyn Stark, when she refuses to kill Jaime. Arya lives in a temple in Braavos. When she kills a man, a temple occupant sends her blind. Sansa stays in the Eyrie, pretending to be Littlefinger's bastard daughter. Riverrun is surrendered without bloodshed to Jaime. In Dawn, Princess Arianne attempts to start a wall by crowning Myrcella. It fails. Sam travels to the Citadel in Oldtown to train as a master. Gilly was forced to swap her baby with Mance Raiders. Aemon dies. A Kingsmoot is assembled in the Iron Islands. Euron wins. He sends Victorian to woo Daenerys for him. Cersei is imprisoned by the church for adultery. Jaime ignores her plea for help. So, fun fact, now that we know that this is my second favourite, my favourite is A Storm of Swords. Doing the summaries again made me actually change my favourites because I had forgotten what had happened in which book. I thought Tywin actually was killed in this book, but he was not, so this has been bumped down to my second favourite. I've also only tabbed half of it because I stopped reading halfway through and then I decided that I really wanted to tab it when I started again, so there we go. A lot of Cersei's chapters in this were really painful. She was, to me, I didn't enjoy watching her be delusional and crazy. Not that she was actually delusional and crazy. I didn't enjoy watching her run the kingdom badly, which sucks because in an alternate universe where Cersei isn't the bad person, I really would have liked to have seen her as a great queen once she was able to take over after Tywin, but of course that's not how the story goes, so that's not what happens, and it was just really boring for me to read a lot of her chapters. I felt like there was a lot of Cersei in this book. Then it was very gratifying when she was finally kidnapped by the church, or not kidnapped, but what would you call it, captured by the church, and I loved that she wrote a letter to Jaime and he ignored her. Jaime is probably my favourite character. I loved the crumbling of her relationship with Jaime. I loved his character development, which a lot of it happens in the previous book when he's away from Cersei, and I love seeing it happen when they come back. There's also a lot of great scenes from Jon in this one too. I really love Jon. He's probably him and Jaime are probably tied for my favourite characters. Overall, I think I enjoy Jon's chapters the most. One of my favourite scenes is in this book. Maybe, I think it's this one, but it's where Jon actually executes someone when I think it's Titus, or Alistair, or is that the same person? I'm not sure. One of the people who have been an antagonist to him from the beginning, he executes them in a boss move as Lord Commander, and it is without a doubt my favourite scene, and it was so powerful. I loved it, reading it so much. Arya's quite boring again. It's really sad because again she was like my favourite character at the start of the series, and now she's my least because I feel like she's so pointless, and it really frustrates me when she's at the temple and she gets assigned to do all these extra jobs. She builds up a life for herself while she's pretending to be someone else when the temple people have asked her to, but then like nothing happens of it, and it just like frustrates me a lot because I really hope that George R.R. Martin has a plan for her, that she's going to come around, because she just feels like she's done this massive, I don't know what to do with her, so I'm just going to chuck her out into the void, and then eventually she'll come back and serve a purpose. So that's kind of been really frustrating to read. And then my favourite is A Storm of Swords, which is really quite hilarious to me because I actually went into a reading slump when I was reading somewhere in A Storm of Swords. I'm not sure which one made me get into a slump, but it was after Robb died. Tyrion and Sansa are forced into marriage. Jaime is freed by Catelyn Stark to save her daughters at King's Landing. His hand is cut off in the journey. Once back, his relationship with Cersei falls apart. Walder Frey has Robb and Catelyn murdered after Robb breaks his promise to marry a Frey. Arya reaches Riverrun the night Robb is killed. She then boards a ship for Braavos. Joffrey is poisoned at his and Marjorie Tyrell's wedding feast. Sansa escapes that night to the Eyrie with Littlefinger. Tyrion is accused of poisoning Joffrey. Prince Oberyn Martell of Dorne is killed as Tyrion's champion. Tyrion is thrown back in jail to be executed. Littlefinger murders Sansa's Aunt Lysa, his new wife. They convince everyone it was an accident. The wildlings attack the wall but fail. Jon becomes the new Lord Commander of the Watch. Jaime frees Tyrion the night before his execution. Tyrion then kills their father Tywin before escaping from King's Landing. Daenerys buys an army of Unsullied, attacks Astapor, Yunkai, and Meereen, freeing all the slaves. She settles in Meereen to rule as queen. So everything that happened in that summary, not everything, but a lot of those big points, I actually thought that they happened in A Feast of Crows. I'm not quite sure why. I definitely had to quickly change my rankings because the events that happened in that book were my favourite ones to read. Joffrey dying, Tyrion killing his dad, that was just like, oh my god, so interesting. I'm so keen to see where the alliances end up in the end. From Lannisters, this like powerhouse, we're family, and then they just completely split apart. Who are they going to end up aligning with? We shall see, because I still think that Jaime and Tyrion are very quite guarded. I know that Tyrion eventually was going to offer his services to Daenerys as an advisor, which that would have been so cool. Why didn't that happen? Tyrion also felt a very pointless towards the end too. His journey felt like we're just like going all over the place, and I know that he's in Meereen right now, I think. I don't know, so he's like near Daenerys and maybe he's going to advise her and then things will start going up for her. I don't really know. I was really sad when Robb died. My favourite parts were definitely Jaime when he was learning about himself and about who he wants to be and getting out from under Cersei's grip. I still feel sorry for Cersei on the whole, but she is not a good person these days and she's not showing any willingness to learn. Jon is also one of my favourite characters to watch. I really enjoy him as he wants to succeed in the Night's Watch and then he wants to improve the standards. If you made it to the end of this video and you don't know what to comment, please comment dagger, blood, scary war, death emoji. Thank you so much for watching this, and don't forget to like and subscribe if you would like to, and I'll see you guys in another video.